Hello and welcome everybody into another edition of the Sun Solar Panel here on basically wherever you listen to podcasts, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We come to you in any medium and every medium. We'll send you a VHS tape if we have to. We really appreciate you, the Flaming Ballers, joining us today on the program. I am Greg Esposito. Ahoy, hoy. I am your host. And joining me as always, usually he's below me on the screen, but today he is next to me. It is the Carmel Thunder from down under. It's Saul Bookman. Saul, how are you, my friend?
I don't know, dude. You know, we moved into this new house. I'm trying to get things set up. And as we were talking off camera, you can probably see a little bit of like a reddish tint to my face because I'm on webcam number 2. And this piece of crap is exactly what it is. And so now I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. I just don't want to buy a DSLR camera or a big camera. And I'm trying to figure out a way I can use my iPhone in conjunction with this because it has a better camera. But if I don't look like I'm The Walking Dead, then I look like I've been on the beach for like 14 hours. So
Let's not lie. Let's stop blaming the camera. This is all the hard work you've put into this house over the last 2 weeks. You basically are exhausted, and it's turned your complexion red.
Probably stress level. Yes, a little bit of that goes into that for sure.
Just paint the wall behind you red. Your face won't look as red. That's the way we handle these kind of things on the solar panel. You will notice.
At least it doesn't look like I still live in a nursing home like last week. So there's that.
This is true.
I got rid of the lamp.
1940s lamp is no longer behind you. We have the return of the Charles Barkley poster from the old home studio. So glad to have Sir Charles back on the program. You may notice that there is somebody missing. It is the Silver Fox, Dave King. He had an early dinner to get to with some of his friends. So we gave him the morning off. So now Dave is also moving, so he will have a new home studio.
You didn't know that if you join the Sun's solar panel, you get a brand new home? Apparently that's what happens.
I didn't. I am still in the same undisclosed walk-in closet somewhere in the Far East Valley. I did add some new accoutrements to the walk-in closet, changed the shelf. So I have a little headroom. I added the vintage Suns pennant and the solar panel jersey. So there is something new for all of us. I just didn't get a full new home like the rest of you. So, and Dave's home is a home, not the old folks' home. Just to be clear, he did buy a house. So
that's where I was coming live from last week.
Dave's
nursing home.
Dave's nursing home. Jeez, I love the fact that we've piled on Dave and he can't defend himself, much like usual. Even when he's here, he can't defend himself very well. But the Suns, speaking of a team that is defended well, they have picked up the pace over the last 5 games and have found themselves potentially. They're 4-1. Feels like they've gotten things sort of back on track if you ignore that New Orleans game. So, Saul, are you buying into this? Have the Suns found their sea legs, for lack of a better term, and are they finally the team we thought they would be going into this season?
Well, man, each game this week, and really since last week when they stomped the Warriors, it is the most unusual 4 out of 5 game winning streak, if you will, that I might have ever seen. It's just there is not one win did you walk away and be like, man, this team has definitely got something going. You know what I mean? Like they were all just kind of herky-jerky, and they had the lead and then they didn't have the lead, and then it looked like they probably were going to lose these games. But the one thing that I think is the constant is no matter what happened what has happened in the game, they find ways to win. And I think that is the mark of a good team. 4 out of your last 5. You don't win 4 games in the NBA just out of fluke. You know what I mean? And none of these games do they have somebody that just went completely off, except for maybe Chris Paul in a couple. But even 30 points for Chris Paul doesn't feel like it's going off, right? It's just a solid performance because that's what he does. If Devin Booker dropped 30, we wouldn't really think twice about it. So the supporting cast hasn't lived up to the hype that they set for themselves in the first 10 games. And that's probably more of my concern. Mikal Bridges has kind of tailed off. Cam Johnson has definitely tailed off until last night. He kind of looked like he bounced back a little bit. But the big takeaway is they're winning games despite not playing their best. And I think that's the mark of a good team.
I agree from that front, and they're winning despite Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges not playing well. Well, earlier in the year, it was those guys were the key. If they didn't shoot well, if they didn't score at a high clip, this team was in trouble. If they struggled from 3-point line, this team was in trouble. Well, I'll give you some stats from Mikal Bridges. In the last 5 games, he is averaging 11 points. 11.6 points on 10% 3-point shooting. He's 2 of 20, and they're still 4-1. And that, to me, is a big deal because, like I said, earlier in the year, if he wasn't on, if Cam Johnson wasn't on, this team was in trouble. And other guys have stepped up. You have Frank Kaminsky, who has played huge. Kaminsky Kove is getting hopping again. Let's just say that. 10 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists in the last 5 games, but most impressively, 54% from the 3-point line, and he's doing this all in about 17 and a half minutes on the court. That's encouraging to me because that's another bench guy, deep bench guy, if you're looking at the beginning of the season, who is now contributing. E'Twaun Moore has stepped up. Langston Galloway continuing to play well off that bench. Abdel Nader, which we spent way too much time talking about last episode, and thank God Dave isn't here because we'd spend time on him and Damian Jones the rest of this episode. But even Abdel Nader has played serviceable minutes in there. So the Suns have started to find that deeper bench, those guys that'll continue to contribute despite injuries to Jay Crowder and Dario Saric still being out and guys like that. They're finding ways to win. I mean, even Devin Booker was out for part of this 5-game stretch, but the guy that really the credit should go to, in my mind, is CP3. He's finally figured out how to be himself in Phoenix. Over the last 5 games, 21 points, 7.6 assists, 4.4 rebounds, 2 steals, 47.6% from beyond the arc in about 31 minutes a game. That's exactly where you need Chris Paul. And yes, it's been a little up and down. It hasn't been consistent. I'll have a 30-point game. I'll have a 13-point game. But overall, he's figured out what he needs to do to help this team win and when he needs to do it. I feel that is the most encouraging thing about this entire run is that he's figured it out. And when Chris Paul gets going, that's when this entire Suns team is going to get going. And I think that's where we are.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different prisms by which I look this. And the main one, and it's kind of similar to what I was saying at the very beginning of the year about Deandre Ayton, is you need Deandre Ayton to play at almost an all-star level for you to be a contender in the West, right? And I think the way I'm looking at this now is you need your star players to play the way they should be playing, and then you need a contributor or two here or there to really step up. Devin Booker has not had a good year, in my opinion. Like not to the level of what we expect from Devin Booker. He's been kind of erratic. He's been a little bit off. He hasn't really, he hasn't shot the ball as well as he usually does. But he's still Devin Booker, and he can still drop 20 on an average. You know what I mean? So I'm still looking for more Devin Booker. We have yet to see the game where CP3 and Devin Booker have both clicked. And when that happens, it's going to be beautiful. Deandre Ayton, go ahead.
I was just to say in that second half on Friday against Detroit, you saw a little bit of it. They kind of took over that second half, but it's not to the point where they're both stars.
A little bit, but they were already up by 16, and it kind of looked like both teams are just kind of on cruise control, waiting to get out of there. I know the broadcast was trying to hype up and say, this is the position Detroit was in last time. Yeah, I was like, well, that was in Detroit, and they were hitting threes out of their mind in that game. And that just was not going to happen last night. So a little bit of a different story. Again, when that happens, it's going to be awesome. Deandre Ayton, again, the inconsistency offensively it leaves a lot to desire. It just does. And me, I'm a big DA fan. I want that guy to do as well as possible. But defensively and rebounding wise, I have no complaints. I think he's been fantastic. But offensively, man, I don't know when it's going to happen. It happened there for a little spurt for like 3 or 4 games, and then it kind of went away where he just was aggressive. But now he's kind of deferred back to this, deferring to everybody else mentality. And when you get the ball underneath the basket and you're big, you don't defer to anybody. You just go. And I'm kind of tired of the passing out and letting everybody else set up the tone for that.
I feel like a lot of times when he's got a mouse in the house or he's got good position, they're not getting him the ball too. So finding that rhythm and that confidence.
How many times is this guy going to get the ball down low and drop the ball? You know what I mean? Like drop the ball, or he brings the ball down low physically and just gets it ripped from him. Like it's happened too many times to trust him. I mean, to be honest,
true. That's fair. I mean, that is very fair that he has done certain things that has warranted a lack of trust from some teammates. I have liked, though, at the end of games, even if he's having a rough offensive night, he's finding ways to have an impact, whether he's getting a rebound off the floor when Chris Paul has a miss and getting fouled late in a game to have an impact, getting big rebounds when they need it. Even though the consistency isn't there, he's finding a way to have an impact late in games in a lot of these wins over the last 5. So that is
for sure.
That is encouraging to me. At least we're seeing that from him. So I'll give him credit where credit's due, but you're right. The consistency is not there. It needs to get there if we expect this guy to be part of any big 3. But one thing I want to get to, and I briefly touched on Mikal Bridges, can we slow the Mikal Bridges as a superstar train down to a crawl? Like, I know it's probably because I spend a lot of time in the vacuum that is Suns Twitter, and guys tend to get overhyped. But Mikal Bridges was part of a national article this week hyping him up and things, and you just look at it, and if we want to talk consistency, Mikal Bridges is not there from a consistency standpoint offensively either, and that's frustrating as well. If this guy's supposed to be looked at as some people want to think he's the third part in a big 3 here, you can't shoot 10% from 3-point land over a 5-game stretch, right? 2 of 20 doesn't get it done.
You can if you can score in other ways. You know what I mean? And his go-to has been slashing to the basket, which largely relies on other people getting you the ball. And so, if you're gonna be a superstar, you're gonna have to be able to create your own shot in many different ways. And I think Mikal's still trying to find that out, or he's still trying to figure that out, I should say.
Take the Sean Marion comparison out of your mouth. I think that's not you, just in general. I feel like that's an insult to Sean Marion when you try to say Mikal Bridges is as good, if not better. I've heard people say that, and it's like, no.
That's blasphemy right there.
You're forgetting who Sean Marion was.
Yeah.
Go back and watch that. Could Mikal be on that level someday? Sure. Not there, not close right now. And I'm sure I will have a mob on Twitter coming at me for saying that. But look, Mikal has work to do. That's just the reality of it. But I think the most interesting thing to come out of these last 5 games, Friday night against Detroit, it was Cam Johnson out of the starting lineup, Jay Crowder out injured, so Jay didn't get the start. It was Frank Kaminsky. Played very well. First time you've had 2 guys with size in the starting lineup this year. And after the game, Monty Williams said, and I'll actually read this quote so I don't misquote anything. He says, I think that's going to be the way we're going to do this going forward, because we're seeing all these teams who are being big and they're playing big power forwards. Points in the paint and production in the paint has been something that we've wanted to nullify as it relates to playing against teams like that. I feel like we needed more size, end quote. To me, that says Frank Kaminsky staying in the starting lineup because he's the only guy with size. Jay Crowder isn't a guy that has size that you're going to put next to Deandre Ayton. Damian Jones isn't worth the spot on the roster. I'm pretty convinced he's James Jones' cousin, and we're just not aware of it right now. James is doing a favor to somebody in his family there, and Jalen Smith has been relegated to the bench. We're not seeing minutes for him, so he's not the size. So Frank Kaminsky seems like the odd man in this case, and over the last 5, he's played well enough to be that, but I don't think that's a long-term solution. Do you? I love this crazy clip of Frank the other night when in Dallas. You gotta love Frank's energy is fun for sure. Let's give him that. He brings that to the table
for sure. No, I love Frank's energy. Man, I'm shocked at how somebody can go from barely even playing a minute in the early part of the season to, I mean, you got to say it. He's been the second best player on the Suns this past week. He just has. He's kept that second.
In terms of consistency, sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's kept that second unit alive and moving. He's been a great facilitator. He's made some great passes. He's hit some key shots. He's added a little bit of a floater to his game all of a sudden. Like Frank Kaminsky's been the second best player on this team during this 4 out of 5 stretch. He just has. Whether you like to say that or not, he just has. Devin Booker drops 20 plus points, cool, but Frank Kaminsky is affecting the game in so many other different ways, and I mean, I've been very impressed with Frank. It's hard for me to say that as a U of A guy. He knows that. I've told him that to his face, and he just laughs. That's fine, but I think Frank Kaminsky. You needed another big while Dario was out to step up, and I mean, moving forward, as we talked about off air, Monty Williams has said that, this is the way going forward because he's tired of kind of playing small ball for a little while. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see how that works out.
Dario's not a big either. I can't see him being the starting forward. So Frank, again, seems like the odd man in here, and I just don't think that's sustainable. And this is from the guy that runs real estate on Kaminsky Kove. Like I love Frank. I love the energy he brings, but he's not a guy that's going to be a starting power forward on a team that you're hoping is a top 5 team in the Western Conference. It just does not seem sustainable.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, 1 through 5. There's not every team in the NBA is stacked from 1 through 5 like with a bunch of all-stars. You're going to have. Okay, let's just say in the West, all right, power forward wise, if you're playing the Lakers, who are you worried about besides Anthony Davis? You have DA covering Anthony, maybe. Okay, so Frank Kaminsky matches up against who? I don't even know who the hell their power forward is right now.
Well, it depends.
You know what I mean? Like, so
size wise,
I mean, yeah. I mean, but like matchup wise, like I think sometimes we overthink the power forward position and the small forward position. Guys are versatile. Frank is versatile. He can play a little bit of the 4 or the 5. And when you're switching up with DA, like okay, you're missing out a little bit athletically for sure, but. I mean, I just feel like when we're comparing Frank Kaminsky against like the elites in the NBA, yeah, of course, yeah, that's not the answer. But there's not many teams that have 3-4 guys that are elite enough to guard guys like the Anthony Davises and such. So I think when we're using that comparison, Frank's just as good as any other power forward in the league that comes off the bench.
Look, that's fair. I understand that. I still think this team needs to make a move, though.
If they I'm not saying they're not going to make a move. No, I'm just saying what they have right now is okay.
Yes, I think that can plug a hole for a certain amount of time. But if you want to be in the playoffs and potentially win a round or two, you're going to have to find another piece. I'm a firm believer in that. And there's a guy in Atlanta that my eyes turn to in Collins. I look at that and I go, right price tag. He's only making a little over $4 million, which means that you can bring him in here with the cap restrictions and everything you have, and match up salaries in some kind of a trade and throw in some draft compensation, whatever needs to be. But that's the guy my eyes shift to. Not committing long-term. He's on an expiring contract. He is a natural stretch 4 that can play there, can have an impact for this team. That guy is who I'm looking at and thinking, okay, can shoot the 3 well too. I would love to see the Suns make a move for somebody like that, or some consistent 3-point shooting. Because to me, that's the biggest Achilles heel here. When the Suns lose, they're shooting 30% from three and only 28% on the road. And when they win, they're shooting almost 40% from three. This team lives and dies by the three-pointer, and they need more consistency. So I'm going after a power forward and looking for shooting if I can figure out a way to make that happen. And Dario, he was in health and safety protocol. Now the ankle injury. I don't know if I can count on him this season. What am I going to get out of him? He's had the injuries and health stuff, and you need to figure it out. I want to add pieces to this team because, look, in reality, you have a 2-year window right now. You have Chris Paul for 2 years, and you made that move to invest all that money in bringing in CP3. You should be all in. You should be trying to figure out how to make this squad the best it can be over these next 2 years to go as far as you can, to prove to people in this league that you are building something special. Because when that Chris Paul money comes off the books, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to attract a free agent if you want to have sustained winning. And you're going to have to actually show that you're committed to doing what it takes to put a winner on the court. And I think you got to do that now.
We got a lot of comments. Marvin Bagley just popped up in the chat room, and I'm like, what?
He showed up. Hey, can you bring me over to Phoenix?
Can we trade for Marvin Bagley? Like, what? Okay. Also, there's a lot of chatter for Sticks. I don't know if there's ever been. Well, I know every fan base is like this. I just will say this, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but man, we love some people that have never proven themselves in this league to get a shot to prove themselves in the league. Like, I haven't seen anything from Sticks that I'm like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, he's gotten a couple minutes here and there, just like some of the other guys that are deep on this roster on the bench. And they've come through and they've showed that they belong on that court. And Sticks is still trying to figure it out because he's a rookie. I don't know why we would throw him in there at this point, especially when, let's say what it is. The Suns have been struggling. Okay, they've won 4 out of 5, but it has not been a pretty 4 out of 5. And so now's not really the time to experiment with a guy like Sticks, trying to get him some minutes to get his confidence up and blah blah blah. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that. Plus, we're forgetting the fact that, these guys see what Sticks is doing in practice, and maybe it just ain't clicking yet.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. Why, if you were in the situation that you were, knowing what you're trying to accomplish with CP3 and what you're trying to make happen here in Phoenix, why do you spend a pick in the lottery on a guy that now you feel you don't have the confidence in? Maybe he's working his way back into shape after being in health and safety protocols and what it seems like was actually having COVID. I don't believe we ever got any confirmation, but based on the time he was out, I'd imagine he actually had it. Maybe he's working himself back into shape, but man, it is concerning to me that you invested heavily in him and he can't see the floor over Damian Jones right now. And maybe that's a Monty thing. Maybe
I mean, shouldn't that tell you enough right there? Damian Jones. Like, he can't get over Damian Jones. Bruh.
Yeah, that's problematic. Jones. You may not have drafted your next Cam Johnson there. You may have swung and missed, and I hope that's not the case because he has the raw talent. But yeah, right now, that's concerning, especially because the Suns are hurting for big man depth, right? With Crowder out on Friday night and Saric out on Friday night, and he still couldn't find the floor. That's very problematic. And I can't imagine that's just Monty's rotations. They have to be seeing something that's leading them to believe this guy is not ready for prime time out there.
Well, and also we got to factor in the fact the part that there is no G League either, and so there's nowhere for Sticks to go get some game time, minutes, and kind of get into that rhythm and work on his game, and that's gone for right now. So I know they're bringing back the G League here soon. They just had their draft, I think, a week or two ago. They'll be back in the bubble, but it's not easy. And who knows when Sticks is going to get his chance back. I think this might be one of those years where you just hope to get him a couple minutes here and there in blowouts, but I would not expect for him to contribute. I certainly wouldn't expect what people were saying in the chat during the draft night and talking about how he was going to be Amari Stoudemire 2.0 plus a jump shot from the perimeter. It's going to be amazing. And I'm like, dude, there's a reason why he fell. I mean, it was kind of a risk to take him that high in the first place. Like, we all knew that. We were all surprised when it happened. So when all of a sudden you think that James Jones has found the magic link, sometimes you swing and miss, like you said.
Yes, shout out to our friend Casey Jacobson, who saved our ass on draft night because
oh my God,
he was the only one that knew anything about it.
Because I was like, who?
Nobody was prepared for that Sticks pick. Let's be honest with that. And it looks like Sticks may not have been prepared to be picked in the lottery either. By the
like,
fact,
what? Did they just call my name for real?
I'm now on a team I have to potentially have an impact on. So if you had to make a move, like if you're James Jones and you're looking at this roster, where are you improving? Is there any particular position? Is there anybody you have in mind that you'd want to chase?
I definitely would love a more consistent shooter from the perimeter. I always think about those the Cavs teams or the it always seems like a guy like Kyle Korver finds his way to a team that's contending, right? I mean, Kyle Korver has always been a name out there that, if you just need a guaranteed bucket from the perimeter, Kyle Korver's your guy. JJ Redick hasn't had the best of seasons so far, but, coming off the bench, getting you a couple threes just kind of get you sparked. He might be that dude. Who knows?
At $13 million, that's tough, admittedly.
It is very tough, and the salary is probably not going to be the reason why you pull the trigger on that one. Outside of that, around the league, there's just not many. There's not many dudes that I think are going to be available because maybe their salary's too high or whatever. But I can't really think of any right off the top. Somebody in the chat said they wanted Mikal Bridges to play. I wanted to get back to this. Mikal Bridges to play more like a Draymond Green role. And I'm like, you couldn't have picked a more opposite player from Mikal Bridges outside of maybe the versatility defensively that they provide than Draymond Green. Because Draymond Green, for what he provides on the court, it's just as much mentally as it is physically. Like, his defensive prowess is something, yes, but he gives those dudes a backbone. Like, because he is just that dude on the court, like, that's always talking trash, won't back down to anybody. And when he's on the court, you feel a little tougher because he's got your back. You know what I mean? Mikal Bridges ain't that dude. Not even close. I don't think Mikal Bridges has ever opened his mouth on the court outside of to be like, and one. That's it.
So in the chat, Flaming Baller, notorious Flaming Baller Rick Johnson wants to know, how is Langston Galloway not that guy? And when you talk about a JJ Redick type that can come off the bench and hit a few threes, like how is he not fitting that role already?
The reason why is because Langston Galloway can't create his own shot, and that's the difference, right? JJ Redick can dribble off the pick and pull up. Langston Galloway hasn't really proven that to my estimation. Like, he can pump fake, take a dribble, pull up, yes. But I'm talking about multiple dribbles coming off of a pick and pulling up. He doesn't have that in his game. He never has. I think he's more of a spot up shooter than anything else, and he's proven that. I've watched him now for what we've played 20 something games, and I haven't really seen that. So JJ Redick's a little bit different when it comes to that. He gives you a little bit more versatility and flexibility, movement wise, than Langston Galloway. So that's why Langston Galloway isn't that guy. And JJ Redick, to be clear, I'm not 1,000% dead set on JJ Redick for sure. I mean, there's other shooters out there like a Kyle Korver, like I said, that might be available. But yeah.
Yeah, and look, that's not to say that Langston Galloway isn't a part of this equation. You need multiple guys that can hit threes, especially open threes, and that's part of the problem that the Suns team has had is when they go cold from deep like they did against New Orleans, they have absolutely no shot at winning. I mean, it's just the case, and
Spicy P.
I look at it and that's very frustrating. You bring up Kyle Korver. You mean Suns great Kyle Korver, right? You do remember that he was technically on the roster, and then they cut him after a trade so he could go sign elsewhere. So he
was here for a hot minute. He was here for a hot minute. Yeah,
he didn't even fly to Phoenix. He got traded in spirit here and then got let go. So don't have to worry about that. The Flaming Ballers having a good old time in the chat today. So you look at this, and I think one interesting thing in terms of 3-point shooting, we're talking about it. Charles Barkley, our favorite former Phoenix Sun, had an interesting comment about 3-point shooting on Inside the NBA this week. So do we have that clip?
Yeah, give me a minute to pull it up. Yeah,
I'll tee it up a bit. Charles went on a bit of a rant in terms of 3-point shooting in the NBA here, and I found it interesting.
Yeah, here we go.
Ass basketball. Just jack up threes all night. Yeah, y'all play like I'm gonna be the old man, get off my lawn. Y'all sit there watching stupid ass basketball. Just jack up threes all night. They go in, we win, we miss, they lose. Give me a break, you dumbass. Yeah, y'all play like
is that where we're at? Like, I actually kind of agree with Charles. Not to play the get off my lawn, as he says, or the anti-analytics guy, but I think the pendulum may have swung slightly too far in that direction. And I think the Suns are an example of that when you see, on nights that they're cold, they're still – this stat caught me off guard. In the losses, when they're shooting only 30%, they're taking 43-point attempts, right? In their wins, they're only taking 34 3-point attempts. So when they're shooting poorly, they're shooting more of them, which is insane to me. You would think at some point you go, we're cold, let's try something else, and yet they double down on it. And I think that's what Barkley's talking about in that clip is it's not smart basketball.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of like it's exactly what you just said. You said doubling down. It's exactly like I am at the blackjack table. I go in with like $100. I'm like, this is all I'm going to play, and then I get up to like 400. I'm like, woo, here we go. That's what the Suns were early in the season, right? They started winning a lot. They put a lot of money in. They're like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. Then they started to lose it, and then they almost lose it all. And then they're like, well, let me take out another $100 and let's do this again. I know I can make that money back, right? And it's like a sickness.
Take the debit card away from them.
I don't have a gambling problem, just so you know. And so, yeah, that's exactly what the Suns do. They try to get it all back in one shot, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, to me, on those nights, when it's pretty obvious and you're not making it, you got to cut to the basket. People say, well, the Suns don't have a roster for that. Well, then that's a flaw in the roster. That's poor roster construction if you don't have guys that can do that. And I refuse to believe that. We've seen Cam Johnson go to the hole. Early in the season, we were applauding him for that he added that to his game. Mikal Bridges can slash, as you said, he needs somebody to get him the ball, but he's not doing it off the dribble. But still, there's ways to do that, and some of that comes down to play calling too. If your offense doesn't have that built into the system that you can default to when threes aren't falling, that's problematic as well to me.
So in the chat, somebody said Grayson Allen. Sorry, Grayson Allen. I don't know. And Cody Hunt actually put his comment up. He said Grayson Allen is maybe the only player in the NBA that I couldn't root for, even if he was on the Suns. And I don't know if I disagree with that. I think I don't know if there's ever been a villain in the NBA that hasn't done anything in his career that has been so hated before in all of basketball circles. Like even his name, Grayson. Like I just want to punch the guy in the throat. Like he
has the most punchable face in basketball.
Oh my God. JJ Redick for like the Duke shooting guards, right? JJ Redick didn't have quite that reputation, but people didn't like JJ Redick either. But JJ Redick has kind of grown in the league, and his counterparts like him and stuff like that. Grayson Allen, like there's dudes in the NBA that hate Grayson Allen, and you can see it on the court. Oh God, I just hate that guy.
Well, I'm glad we're in agreement. There are a lot of guys that when they're not on your team, I mean, CP3, quite frankly, is one of those guys that you get really frustrated at when he's not on your team. He's just the kind of guy that gets under your skin. Grayson Allen to me is the guy that that is under your skin even if he's on your team. I don't think I'd like him. There's a handful of guys. Robert Horry was that way. The Morris brothers are that way, where even if they're on your team, you're like, I don't feel particularly great about this. Maybe the Lakers fans and Spurs fans would say differently about Horry, but I stay in that camp, and you're never gonna.
There's a difference. There's a difference between not backing down and just playing dirty. And Grayson Allen's definitely the dirty player for sure.
That is true. Perplexed Damage also says Robert Horry in the chat. I hat tip to you. I 100% agree. He's a guy that is like that as for well. Life. So, so we agree. I think some move needs to be made. Well, it's yet to be seen if the Suns will do it. We've got a little bit more time than usual, right? We probably have about 2.5 weeks traditionally until the trade deadline, but with the season getting shifted back, we're talking late March, I believe. I'm not going to guess on the date because I don't know it off the top of my head, but it is late March, so there is plenty of time to make those kind of decisions before they are.
Usually the trade deadline's like February 14th, like around Valentine's Day, because people like to get their hearts broken by trading their favorite players. So. But this year, no trade whatsoever. This year, I do believe it's going to be like the last week of March or the beginning of April.
Yeah. So we'll see what the Suns do there. New segment on the show right now. We're going to do the Twitter question of the week. If you follow us at Sun Solar Panel on Twitter, you will see that we have some fun. We throw out some unique questions on Twitter throughout the week because sometimes we're bored at work and we decide let's have some fun, spice it up. My favorite question we threw out there this week was the best Sun, and so we might have this graphic of the tweet, but best Sun not named Barkley, Nash, or Booker. Who do you have, Saul, out of that group?
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's between two guys, right? For me, it's either Sean Marion or it's not Tom Chambers. Sorry.
Get out of here with
Sean Marion or Amari Stoudemire.
How do you hold on. Back it up. Dave's not here, so I haven't gotten particularly angry, but now I'm a little perturbed at you. How do you confuse Amari Stoudemire and Tom Chambers?
No. First of all, nobody's confusing those two at all. I was actually trying to pull up your stupid ass tweet, and I saw Tom flash across my screen. That's why I said Tom Espo. That's why.
No, you just don't know the difference between Amari Stoudemire and Tom Chambers.
Yes, I don't know the difference between literally black and white. My bad.
You see no color. You see no color whatsoever. Yeah. That is Saul Bookman. Caramel isn't a color to him. It's a state of mind.
I would probably go with Amari Stoudemire. I know Sean Marion. He first of all, he played longer than Amari for the franchise, and did a ton of great things. But without Amari Stoudemire, you don't have what we had with the 7 seconds or less Suns. You just don't, because you needed that guy that could dominate down low. And he was a walking bucket, 20 to 30 a game guaranteed. Had some fantastic dunks, and so I just think Amari Stoudemire is that dude. That would be it.
The chat says Trevor Ariza. No, thank you for joining. You're wrong, Saul. People in the chat who are saying Kevin Johnson, people are saying Connie Hawkins, Paul Westphal, Marion, Amari. You're all wrong, and I'm just gonna frankly tell you. There's only one man and one man only that after you look at Barkley, Nash, or Booker and you say who is the greatest Sun of all time, there's only one other guy, right? And he's right up here. It's Al McCoy. It is Al McCoy is the greatest son.
That's like the biggest cop-out ever. That is like the biggest cop-out ever. Because clearly we're talking about on the court. And you just completely
Where does it say on the court? It says best son not named Barkley, Nash, or Booker.
The gorilla then.
I can't argue with that. Although much like
so it's not so clear anymore, is it?
He's had a tough last decade, all right?
Actually, how about just the logo? The Phoenix Suns original logo. That's the number one. Come on, man.
Come on. At least say a person. Al.
Where's Dave? Where's Dave? We need somebody to kick around because this
would be agreeing with me uncomfortably right now. You go, okay, I can see that.
We're also
Dave's old. And
we're also missing our stat of the week. Where's Dave with the stat of the week?
Stat of the week. Saul brings the glasses back. I think I nerded it out with some stats earlier because I figured Dave wouldn't be there. Walter Davis, Alex in the chat says, they're okay. If you don't want to count Al, fine. I understand Marion. I understand Amari. I think Paul Westphal is a great call on that when you look at the impact he had, and you could count coaching too if you want to stretch the bounds of what we're going for. I think the injury history takes KJ out of it. I had a lot of people on Twitter say that as well, and I don't see KJ. I think he's a tier below a lot of these other guys.
But the thing about KJ though, and the reason why KJ is up there is because when you're talking about dynamic players and dudes that just there's something about them that just gives you that surprise and that that I think basketball is an entertainment, and I think we all want to be entertained. And when something happens unexpectedly, and KJ is probably the one son that has produced those moments, maybe more than anybody in terms of unexpectedly. And I'm talking about dunks, obviously, dunking on big dudes like Olajuwon and Mark Eaton. I mean, those are pretty cool moments in Suns history, and we show those all the time, just like the Tom Chambers dunk where he hits Mark Jackson, and apparently he lifts another 18 feet in the air because of it and dunks on his head. Like those are the cool things. And so I think
true. That is the best and worst teabag in NBA history.
And KJ when he's on, I don't know if there's a better guard in the league. And he would give it to Magic too. And that's the thing is KJ went up against greats and would give it to them too. And that's why I could see an argument for KJ, but
I get it, but to me the injuries kill that argument when it comes to KJ, because he was hurt so often that it literally impacted the Suns' ability to win a title. If KJ's healthy more, I think they win a title in those early 90s, mid 90s.
I don't think so.
Because
I don't think so. They're not beating the Lakers. They're not beating the Trailblazers. That's the problem, is they couldn't beat them.
I think they could have beaten the Bulls in 93 if KJ isn't injured. KJ's hobbled at that. He gets hurt at the end of the season. He's not at full strength. They push him to 6 even with a KJ that's not at full strength, and almost win game 6 if it's not for bad defensive rotations. Kevin Johnson's injury history just it takes him out of the running for me. We got a couple others in the chat. William Flaming Ball Williams says Tom Chambers. I loved him though. A tip of the hat to Tom. He played well. Perplexed Damage thinks Dave would have said Alvin Adams because Dave remembers all the early Suns in the first games played. I would agree there. I'm going to give the middle finger to a few people in the chat who said, hello, said, I thought Espo was going to say Alex Len. No, thank you for that. And then Rick Johnson says, I was thinking he was going to say Eric Bledsoe. So screw you both. If I was going to say somebody obscure or somebody on that,
at least nobody said the Morais. So
it would have been Goran Dragic, so.
Or Bender.
No, Dragan Bender. Yeah, I was high on Dragan Bender for about 5 minutes, and then that high wore off. And I realized
who do you think is the biggest bust in Suns history?
Oh, I mean, there's so many.
I know, but pick one. Who do you think is the absolute worst?
I don't want to speak ill of the dead. When you when you look at, you could have had Kareem and you wind up with Neil Walk. That's not exactly the best. Armin Gilliam wasn't a great pick. Josh Jackson, Dragan Bender, obviously.
Yeah, but at least guys like Armin Gilliam, at least they gave you something, right?
Yeah, but you were expecting a lot. I mean, Gilliam was 6. Who was it Bedford that was 2? They had people forget. Everybody remembers Kareem. Well, they got the number 2 pick in the David Robinson draft too. So they have a history of missing out on that franchise guy at the top of the draft. If anybody in the chat says,
look who it is in the chat. Look who it is.
Hey,
fresh off the walker and at his cocktail at the table. Good job.
Dave finished his meal and his and wrapping up dessert right now. His dinner is over.
Did you drink your Ovaltine this morning, Dave?
Yes, at 1 a.m. when Dave woke up, he had his Ovaltine. So,
I'm sure his back is not happy right now, moving today. So,
before I got to read one other comment here, not in relation to the topic, but I just saw it in the chat and it made me laugh. B says, Frank Kaminsky is the new GameStop stock. They were betting against him, but Espo kept investing to renovate Kaminsky Kove.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Now I'm being investigated by the SEC for pumping up that Kaminsky stock way too much. So.
William Skinador in the chat talks about Dave and says he had his morning power walk around the hood this morning. So that's good.
Yeah, Dave living in that real ghetto area there. The ghetto old folks home.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the type that lives on 27th Ave in Indian School, does he?
No. Some prop bet time. It is that time of year with the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. Lots of gambling going on, and my favorite are the prop bets. Those ridiculous questions that are a little outside the norm. And there's an actual prop bet on the books for Sunday. Suns play the Celtics before the big game, the Super Bowl, Sunday afternoon. And the actual bet that you can put some money down on is Suns points against the Celtics on Sunday, or Chiefs rushing yards who has 110 or more on Sunday. Where would you land on that?
I'm actually going to say the Suns are going to score more points than the Chiefs will have rushing yards.
I agree. I think especially with just the Suns offense starting to find its legs in this past week, and the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, having that concussion in that last game. I don't see them. I don't see the Chiefs getting more rushing yards than the Suns have points. So I agree with you. I'd take that. I wouldn't feel overly confident. I'm not betting a house payment. I'm probably betting a lunch on that bad boy, but I would definitely put the money there. But you know what? I thought in the spirit of this, right? Why not make a few of our own Suns prop bets?
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
So this is where we're getting to. There's always a method to the madness. Suns prop bet. More Kendall Jenner photos in Suns gear or Devin Booker 40-point games this season. Where are you going to bet? That is Kendall Jenner on the screen in a throwback Suns sweater with the old school 90s logo on it. And I joked on Twitter, I was more excited to see the Suns 90s logo than I was Kendall Jenner because that logo is a thing of beauty.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Kendall Jenner photos because I mean we've already been seeing them. And I think there was another one too where she was wearing something different and it was Suns related as well. So yeah, she's all over.
So we got 2 photos and no 40-point games so far. I tend to lean in that direction. I'm guessing Kendall's going to turn up the Suns' attention to try to get Book some votes in the All-Star game, and we move on. Next one has to do with that. More likely, Devin Booker makes the All-Star game or the arena gets a name this season.
Ooh. Do we have a graphic for that?
I don't.
Oh, okay. I was
No,
looking for one. My bad.
look, I'm as the graphics department. I only have so much time. So,
Okay, so Devin Booker makes the All-Star game, or the arena gets new name. Man, I don't think Devin Booker has built his reputation enough to get the nod from a coach this year, because he's going to need that, because he's not getting in the vote, because he's already I think 1.5 million behind the second vote getter, which is Luka at the guard position, which they have Luka at the guard position. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
it doesn't matter. Luka's going to get voted in because he has millions of stands across the world.
Yeah, for sure.
You need a real Kardashian push to get Booker in.
A real Kardashian push. Yeah. So I'm going to say the arena gets new name.
From a Suns standpoint, I really hope they get the revenue of a new name. I certainly do. I'm going to say Devin Booker gets in the All-Star game, though. I think coaches are going to wind up voting him in if he picks it up over the next couple of weeks, just because, as we've talked about, it's basically once you get in, it's a lot easier to wind up in that neighborhood again. The last one in Suns prop bets: DA gets fans respect, or Nickelback gets the respect of music aficionados. Which one is more likely?
Ooh, man, Nickelback getting respect. Yeah, right. DA is going to get the respect before that happens for sure. Nickelback. Oh, no. Not happening.
I think DA wins over Suns fans as well. So that is Suns prop bets as we go into a big game weekend. In the chat, Vincent says Suns. She needs, in referring to Kendall, she needs a solar panel jersey. Well, we've got one here that we can send her. Great Chinese knockoff, so we'll send it. Ricardo says, Espo, don't talk about her. Please don't get Booker mad. I'm being friendly. I'm not being rude about Miss Kendall Jenner. There's nothing.
First of all, if you think Espo is going to get Devin Booker mad on this podcast, then man, we have bigger problems. If Espo is going to get under Devin Booker's skin about comments about Kendall Jenner, and they're not even lewd comments, they're just like, I like the sweater she's wearing. Yeah, you can go somewhere else with that, because and clearly you have not been looking all over the internet, because there's far worse things out there that other people are saying than what Mr. Espo is saying, for sure.
I would hope Book and I are cool enough that I can say the sweater is nice and not upset him. But I would be happy if he did get upset, just because that would mean he'd heard the show, which I highly doubt he's ever heard a second of this program, for good reason. And then Vincent says in the chat, we need the solar panel arena. If you want to donate a lot more by clicking the join button on the YouTube channel, I am. If you can get me, 30 million, we'll spend it on the naming rights on the arena. We will do that. So you brought up all-star voting. It looks like, according to the first round of votes here from the Western Conference, you look at it, Devin Booker is 6th. Chris Paul is 7th. Devin Booker, 173,000, almost 174,000 votes. Chris Paul, 128,000. Top two get in to start, and they're in quite the hole, as Steph Curry has 2 million. Luka Doncic, 1.3 million. Damian Lillard, almost 1 million. So I'm guessing we're not going to see any Suns guards in the All-Star starting lineup, but not really a surprise there. I am a little disappointed in the fact that the Suns fans have not gotten out a little bit more in force and supported our guys, but that seems to be a normal occurrence when you look at these kind of things. Saul, does it surprise you at all?
No, not at all. I think this is to be expected. We knew Steph Curry, when he came back, he was probably going to get the most votes, and he is, and deservedly so. He's playing at a high level. Luka has not been very good this year. He's been okay. He hasn't been amazing. So the fact that he's outvoting Damian Lillard, who I think has been far better, that's just because of his reputation, I guess. Outside of that, nothing else on there really. John Morant up there above Donovan Mitchell is kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I think that certainly is. Though this voting, with the tweeting and everything and retweeting, and it's skewed. I mean, it doesn't. John Morant has a pretty big fan base out there, especially with some of his highlight plays and stuff. Donovan Mitchell is a polarizing figure. I don't know a lot of people that dislike John Morant in a way that they dislike Donovan Mitchell, so I don't know that necessarily surprises me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's a perplexed damage, says Jalen Smith will win the skills competition. I don't know how far down the list they're going to invite people to participate in a potential skills competition. But they've gone pretty far down the list if Jalen Smith is in it. But you know what? That right now it's time for the best part of the program. As always, it is time for Espo's Big Board. And this week, the topic is, and I know this is a great one for those of you listening to the podcast edition of the show. I will do my best to paint a picture with my words. But Devin Booker this week dropped a photo of him in what appears to be a parking garage with a classic car and his dog. And there's a lot of jokes about what album cover is this Devin Booker photo. So in honor of that, I decided I was going to pick my top 5 favorite Suns photos.
Are you talking about this photo right here?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, level B.
B level. I don't know that. I get it, but I joked A level player, B level rapper. If we're gonna drop an album, I've never heard Devin Booker sing, but I can't imagine it's at the level that his basketball playing is. But yeah, it inspired me to pick my top 5 Suns photos of all time. At number 5, it was a tie, both of them Sir Charles Barkley on the photos. And the first one is a photo you've all probably seen this on the screen for those of you watching, but for those of you listening, I'll describe it. It's Charles Barkley on a background that looks like a 90s background that you would have used for your corporate headshot, smashing two inflated basketballs together. I never understood this photo and yet absolutely loved it. Charles doesn't seem like he knows why he's doing this either, but he played along with what the photographer thought. So I always found that funny. And tied for 5th has to be Charles Barkley in the hot tub at what I believe was America West Arena with a rubber ducky. I never got any kind of reasoning why this photo happened, but it was taken from above. He's smiling. It is just the most bizarre photo, and yet for some reason I love it. It's ridiculous, and it makes me smile every time I see it. So that is number 5. Number 4 on the big board this week, Steve Nash playing hockey in a Suns uniform. And I love this photo because I've actually heard the backstory on it. The ice was down at the arena for the Phoenix Coyotes at the time when they're playing at America West Arena. Steve Nash was a rookie. He comes there and they're going to do a photo shoot, and he sees the ice, and he's a Canadian boy, right? So he wants to get out there. They put him out there. They take some photos. It winds up as his Upper Deck card one year, also winds up as the cover of a Fast Break magazine. It's Steve Nash holding a hockey stick in a full sunburst Suns white uniform, hockey skates on with a basketball in place of the puck. And there's actually, if you search it, some great video of Steve Nash actually skating around, actually shooting hockey pucks during this shoot. And you can't tell in the way they took the photo, but the uniform has no number or no name on it. They didn't even have a Nash jersey for him at the time. That's how young he is, his rookie year there. So that is number 4. Number 3 on the big board, and everybody remembers this photo. It's Eric Bledsoe, Goran Dragic, Isaiah Thomas, all grabbing at one basketball, and they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. This one is worth 1,000,000 of them, and most of them are curse words, because we all remember this is actually how this all played out. 3-point guards could not work together because they all wanted the ball, and it wound up with 2 of the 3 traded, and one of them eventually saying, I don't want to be here. So this photo is both painful and hilarious to see every time I see it. That's why it's number 3. Number 2, Aquaman. No, not the DC superhero photo. It's actually Wesley Person in a full Suns white sunburst uniform underwater with a basketball. Now, you look at it and he's holding his breath, his cheeks are puffed, he looks terrified, and that's because he actually is. This was another Fast Break magazine photo shoot, and former boss of mine, Jeremy McPeak over there, who used to be one of the heads of Fast Break magazine, had this great idea. They said, that before book, shots were wet like Wesley Person. Oh, Aquaman would be a great nickname. Let's throw him in a pool, take a photo for the cover of the magazine. There was one giant problem. Wesley Person didn't know how to swim and didn't like the water. So he was a good sport. He went underwater, held his breath. They took a photo with this underwater camera that they rented. Not the greatest photo in Suns history, but one of the greatest stories and a ridiculous looking photo. That's why it comes in at number 2 on the list. And well, most of these Saul's been throwing up on the screen. The last one, number 1, I actually brought the photo. It is Elliot Perry in a bathtub full of socks, because he was known as Socks, right? Lounging in there with his son's hanging in the background. It's the cover of Fast Break magazine. It also made it on one of Elliot Perry's cards. The headline on the magazine is Socks Appeal. Yes, Elliot Perry in a clawfoot tub full of socks. The headline, Socks Appeal. And the reason I have this, fun story, my last game working for the Suns, they were playing the Memphis Grizzlies, and Elliot Perry was working for the Grizzlies. I knew I had this magazine up in my office. I ran up and grabbed it, broke the rule of asking somebody for an autograph, didn't do it but twice in my time with the Suns, one of them being Elliot Perry signing this cover of the magazine that says, "Best wishes, Elliot Perry." He's not actually, but it appears he's naked in a bathtub full of socks. So, that is top 5. No, Sawbucks in the chat says Amari naked didn't make the top 5. No, not for me, but no judgment if he makes your top 5. There is a great Amari Stoudemire poster that I've been in search of for years. It is him with his feet up on a desk in a paint shop, and it says owner of the paint, and he's wearing a tie and a shirt and business pants, and he's on an old school phone. I always found that poster entertaining. I've never been able to purchase it, but that one was just outside my top 5. But I thought top 5 photos in Suns history. That is Espo's big board.
Nice big board. I like that one.
Hey, you gotta have some fun.
When I get quiet, it's because I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that picture.
Look, that's just obscurity that I know because of years of reading Fast Break magazine in particular. A lot of photos like that came from that. Hat tip to Jeremy McPeak and the old Fast Break crew. If you don't remember it, it was the Suns official magazine for well over a decade in the late 80s, early 90s. One of my favorites. I believe that brings us, unless you haven't imagined this for me, Saul, I believe that brings us to the end of the show.
No, imagine this. Imagine if I didn't have to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to do this show. Man, wouldn't that be great?
There are like 7 days in between when we do the show, right?
I know, but I have to wake up early for all those too. You know what I mean? It's like, it never stops. It's all good. No, imagine this week. It'll be exciting. It'll be interesting to see how the Suns react, or play this week. They got the Celtics tomorrow, and then they have the Cavs on Monday. And hey, if you're fortunate enough to get a ticket, welcome back. That's kind of cool. The Suns are back in the arena, or the fans are allowed back in the arena. A certain amount, not all the fans, obviously. So
1,500, I believe, is.
Yeah, I do believe they're selling tickets now. So should be fun.
Yep, good on them. If you get to go, I'd love to hear what the experience is like, because I think it is going to truly be one of a kind, as you're not going to experience anything quite like what we're going on now. 1,500 fans in a cavernous new arena. It certainly will feel luxurious and like you're getting it to yourself. Lots of space to put up the feet, walk in the concourse, and the like. So if you do get to go out to one of the games, we'd love to hear about your experience. You can email us, mailbag@solarpanelpod.com. You can tweet us at @SunSolarPanel. Big shout out to Dave King. We appreciate you. I know we joke around, but we do love you. Looking forward to having you back next week on the show. He is Saul Bookman. You can follow him at Twitter at Saul_Bookman. The underscore is there because neither the Saul nor the Bookman want to admit that they know each other. That's how embarrassing of a week it's been trying to put the house together for Saul, and they're not talking to each other. I'm at Espo on the tweeters. You can hit me up there. Show at Sun Solar Panel. So until next week, we'll talk to you here on the Solar Panel. Ahoy.